I'm off! 5,000 mile run across Canada!
That red, white, and blue.
Well, now you know what my orgasm face looks like. I'm going to be super fast. I'm going to take you through the stepping stones of how I ended up running across Canada. I'm going to talk a little bit faster than normal. So for the first kind of 9 years of my life, I spent most of the time in hospital. I've got a very rare condition called syringomyelia. And so symptoms as a kid, sometimes I couldn't move my legs, I had an immune deficiency. I was really, really sick. But my mum, at 9 years old, she put this piece of string across the garden. She's like, come on, Jamie, let's play tennis. And I didn't really feel like playing, but I went out there and I started cracking the ball. And that was the first time my love for movement came. And I'm really safe to say and lucky to say that in that year, the symptoms disappeared and I regained my health. So I had this massive vision to be like Tim Henman. And I turned to 16 years old. And unfortunately, that was the age where I discovered beer and girls. I carried on playing tennis. I became a tennis teacher and I started to save up to put a deposit on a house. I was working my absolute socks off and I was living with my mum and dad. Now I've got to tell you about my mum and dad. I lived with them working very hard, and my dad, he's been a bricklayer all his life, and he came through the door after 25 years and he just said, do you know what, to me and my mum, he said, I really hate what I do. And we said, we don't need to do it anymore, Dad. So we went and got a job helping people with autism and learning difficulties, the ones that actually attack. On his first day, he got hit and he came through the door and he's like, I've just had the best day of my life. At the same time, my mum, she's like talked about fostering all her life. And so finally, we all took the step together to become foster parents. And we had our first kid called Bella, 15 years old. She was an absolute nightmare. She came in, she swore at us non-stop. And we all just got together and just said, that's a sign of affection. So as I'm saving up to put this deposit on the house, you can flick, yeah, you don't want to see that anymore. As I'm saving up, I went to buy this house, and right at the last minute, I just I backed out because I had this horrible feeling in my stomach. I said, something's not right. And then I suddenly realized the only reason why I was buying the house was because everyone else around me was buying one. So I pulled out, I bought a second-hand bicycle for 50 quid out of the newspaper. I flew to Bangkok and said, I'm going to cycle back to Gloucester. For me, the motivation was actually to give back to the children's hospitals. Went from Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and then I cycled up alongside the Afghanistan border, and then there's this huge kind of gunfire going on in the morning, 5 o'clock, and I thought it was fireworks, but I suddenly realized I was in the middle of a war zone. So I got the camera, and there was lights on the camera, and I got to film this, and I just started waving it in the middle of a war zone. I was shot at. It was my own fault. Luckily, I wasn't hit, and I was trapped with 30 other tourists in 4 walls, and there was mountains everywhere, tanks coming in, explosions everywhere. After 30 hours, this guy said, you've got to get out of here. There's a ceasefire for 2 hours. You must go. And so we left. Luckily, we all got out alive. 600 people died in those kind of 30 hours. So I carried on. I went up to Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Iran, Iraq. I didn't die through that. And then I went through Turkey. Now, my cousin Kev, he wanted to join me in Turkey, so we had a quick Skype chat, and he said, Jamie, I really want to join. I said, okay. He said, right, I'm going to fly into a very special city. And the name of the city was Batman. Batman actually exists. And he brought a Batman and Robin outfit with him. And we done the whole country dressed up as Batman and Robin. when I got back home, I wanted to go big and I wanted to carry on with the fundraising for the Children's Hospital. So I decided to attempt one of the toughest world records there is by, the current record was stood at 10 days by sitting on a stationary bike. So on day one, I kind of get on it and I'm like, right, I need to go, and every minute counts, obviously, for, so I'm like, right. So they went and handed me a bottle, right, a hospital bottle, and then everyone's here like this, and I had to try and pee and cycle at the same time. Have you ever tried to do that? It's really difficult. I got stage fright on the first day. I managed to get to day 8, and that's when my bum started to bleed, blister, and become infected. And there were proper man tears. And so they brought skin specialists in to sort the problem out. And they came in and they said, Jamie, we need to take a photo. So they took a photo of my bum, and then they showed me. Why would you do that? And they said, we're really, really sorry, Jamie, but there's nothing we can do for your bum to heal. You need to get off that bike. And I said, well, I've got to keep going. This guy said, I've got it, Manuka honey. It's an antibiotic, it's actually honey. So I slapped it on and it saved the day. And I did feel like licking my fingers afterwards. Once I finished that, I broke the world record by sitting on it for 12 days. It was absolutely hell. And then the whole of Gloucester was coming up to me and they were saying, Jamie, so what are you doing next? I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing next? I've done enough already. But it felt right, and I had a visa for Canada. So I said, okay, right, I'll do another adventure. So a couple of days later, I'm sat on the loo in my mum and dad's house, and I'm like, right, I never cycled before, I've never ran before, but maybe now I can run. So I burst out, I ran up to my mum and dad, and I'm like, Mum, Dad, I'm gonna run across Canada. My mum was like, no, not again, Jamie, no. And then my dad, my passionate dad, his vein was pulsating out of his head, and he's like, yes, son, yes. So I literally went straight out. I flew to St. John's, Newfoundland. I put my hand in the Atlantic Ocean, and then I got going, and you kind of saw that. I got a little bit lonely at the beginning, so I realized I needed people. So on about the second day, I thought I needed to knock on someone's house. And so I knocked on the door, and I said, hi, I'm running across Canada. Is there any chance I can camp on your lawn? But in my head, I'm like, please let me in. And this woman, Sylvia, she said, no, you can't. Off you go. And I said, I'm really sorry. So I started to walk off. And she said, who are you anyway? I said, well, I'm running. She said, wait there. And she came back 5 minutes later. She said, I've just Googled you, and you're real. So I carried on setting up my tent, and I went straight back over it. 5 minutes later, she came out. She said, there's a key waiting for you. A motel is just over the road. It's all paid for you. Knock your socks off. I carried on running, about 150 marathons in now, chronic tendonitis in my foot. Every single step was painful, minus 40. I ended up getting frostbite on my nose. I lost a little bit of it, but I've got plenty of it, so that's all right. I finally get to the Rocky Mountains, and this is the point where everyone was telling me, you can't go through the Rocky Mountains in the winter, you're going to die. The rangers, the police, every single individual. And then I had a message that literally changed all that. It read, hey Jamie, as you head into what might be the hardest and most dangerous part of your journey, I thought it might inspire you to be reminded what you are running for. You might recall Samuel, a little guy in an orange hat and a sweatshirt that you met in the city of Thunder Bay at the Terry Fox Monument and selling cupcakes at the market. No, whereas if you don't recall, you've met a million people. And I remember this family like it was yesterday. Anyway, Samuel's cancer has returned and he is out of treatment options. For now, we are enjoying every day, and he is living a full, joyful life as best he can. It is devastating for us, obviously, but it's also motivating to make sure that you know that what you are doing is going to help change the outcome for kids like him in the future. We really love reading your Facebook posts. As a normal mum, I have to say first, be careful, Jamie. But of a mum of a child facing the end of his beautiful life, I say, keep going, Jamie. It didn't matter at that point what I achieved, what I'd fundraised. All that mattered to that person and to that mother was that I was just giving it my best shot, and that's all we can ever do is give it our best. So I finished it off, I made it, I put my hand in the Pacific Ocean. It was the day that I thought about every single day I woke up. I made it. It wasn't quite enough to put my hand in, so like a plonker, I ended up running in. I nearly got swept away, and I nearly got hypothermia because it was so cold. When I got back, I thought that was the end, but Rich Lee, who wanted to do a homecoming party for me, wanted to open up the cathedral in Gloucester. Yeah, Gloucester is way better than Cheltenham. And I said, Rich, I'm really worried, don't do the cathedral, like it won't get filled. And it was like, like your birthday party, where like you're really worried no one's going to show up. And I was really nervous, I said, please don't. And he said, no, we're going to do it and we're going to fill it. And I said, okay. So he ended up kind of rolling out the red carpet. Over 1,000 people came. Mike Tyndall didn't even get a seat, get in. And then the mayor of Gloucester came up by the end of it and then awarded me the key to the city. And there's only a few people on the planet that have been given this, and it's quite an accolade because I can now officially herd sheep through the city centre of Gloucester. I kind of slipped into a bit of a moment here where it was all done, it was over, and I slipped into depression. I curled up in a little ball. I put on Prison Break and Breaking Bad, and it got me through it a little bit. And I just thought, why? Why does it feel like I've achieved nothing? And so I got a phone call from a guy, Mario Peters, and he said, Jamie, how are you doing? This guy's an entrepreneur. He's literally got so much money, he just doesn't care about money. He said, how are you doing? I said, Mario, I've raised £250,000 for children's hospitals. I feel like I've made a difference in the world, but at the same time, I just feel like I achieved nothing, and I feel nothing. Why? And he said, let's go for a coffee. So we went for a coffee, and we sat down, and he said, Jamie, I watched you chase a big cake. We're all chasing the big cake. The big happy cake. That's our goal and that's our purpose, and we need that because that's what drives us. He said, but the whole time we're just eating crumbs. The whole thing. Lastly, I am just a normal bloke from Gloucester. I'm not an adventurer. I'm literally just like anyone else. I just found a little bit more. I just had to dig a little bit more than others. And we all have that. We all have that. Thank you very much.
Jamie, thank you so much.
Yep. I am single as well.
Yeah. We're sitting on country stools here. Any second now, I'm going to open the floor to questions. That's not what you say, is it? I'm going to open something to... What's the expression I'm reaching for and missing? I'm going to open it to the floor. Open it to the floor. I'm not going to open the floor. That'd be absurd. They wouldn't like that. I just wanted to ask, how much planning do you do for these trips? It sounds like not a lot.
Don't be silly. I am as naive as they come. But actually, I do have a little story. You've got the naive and the planner. While I was halfway across Canada, somebody came up to me and they said, Jamie, I think I know why you can take on these big challenges. I said, please tell me, because I haven't got a clue. And he said, well, you've got the planner and you've got the naive. The planner, when they do their supermarket shopping, they write a list before they go. And when they go, they use their Google Maps and they take all the right aisles. And then when they kind of finish, it's like, it's all stress-free. And then you've got the naive. And they don't write a list before they go. They get lost along the way. They go in, they come back out, and they're like, I forgot what I got. So they need to go back in and get what they lost or what they forgot. And the difference between the two is that the planner can plan stage 1, 2, 3, 4, but they get to stage 20 and then they get a little bit scared and they never start the journey in the first place. But the naive, they don't think about stage 1, 2, 3, 4, let alone stage 20. So it doesn't matter which one you are. If you're a planner, you need to take a pinch of naivety. And if you're naive, I really suggest on planning.
But what you have, clearly, is stamina. I mean, bloody hell, stamina like you've never seen before. You see it through. What keeps you going when you're doing these challenges?
So it's a really good question. I think the letter kind of was the most powerful part of that. But when I finished cycling from Bangkok to Gloucester, I got a message from someone. And they said, Jamie, I'm now going to cycle around the world after what you've done. And I was like, I never, ever intended that, ever. And suddenly I realized that actually it was having that kind of snowball effect. And I wondered how much is he kind of going to fundraise. And then 5 years before, I heard about this ordinary guy that cycled around the world called Average Joe. And I was like, he was so average. I heard about his story, but that seed kind of came in and it planted on me, so I'd like to plant that on others, really.
Very well done. And when you were in Canada, you're saying it's quite lonely. It's a lonely business, this. You have no backup, do you? It's kind of just you. What do you do? Does support build? Do you go out? Do you look for support? Do you do stuff to try and drum up support?
So I'm really lucky that I've got Rich Lee for PR. I don't know about that world, but Rich just got in touch and said, I really, really like your story, and I'd just like more people to hear about it. So the reason why £250,000 is raised and people hear about the story is down to him. So I'd love a round of applause for him. I will tell you, though, there was a Facebook group that changed the Canada Run support-wise, and they called themselves the Stalking Mama Bears. I'm not joking, right? As I ran up to a village, this Facebook group, private Facebook group, just built, and 20 women were calling up the towns and villages ahead. So I went into one village, and a fire engine turned up. And it was like, Jane, we're gonna drive with you as you run into the village. Then everyone was coming out and clapping me in, and I was in the middle of a storm. They took it one step further. I got a phone call from one of the mama bears. She said, Jamie, have you been on a date since you've been in Canada? I said, well, no, actually, I've been in the woods. You know I have. And anyway, I just forgot about the phone call. A week later, this woman gets out of her car and she gives me a bouquet of flowers. And I said, well, what do you want me to do with this? She said, hi, I'm one of the Stalking Mama Bears. She said, here's a bouquet of flowers. There's a camper van a kilometre up the road. There's a candlelit dinner and a hot Canadian girl waiting for you. I literally ran my heart out. Yeah, Stalking Mama Bears.
That's what mama bears do in the woods. Extraordinary. And obviously, apart from finishing, which must be, well, as you said, sometimes slightly anticlimactic in a way. You finish, and that's sort of it, and not quite it in a way. But what are the best moments along the way when you're doing these ventures?
I guess it's the people that come out. It's.
Well, they are.
So there's me and my cousin Kev. Do you know what, that right there, it's part of the adventure because it's so naively done, nothing's got a plan. Every day is a surprise and it's an adventure. And so my cousin Kev kind of surprising me like that. It's those moments. When it comes to fundraising, I'm really motivated by it, but sometimes it feels like you're raising money and it's digits on a screen. So I really like when the families and the kids come from the children's hospitals and they come and run with me, and that feels real. So I hope you kind of get that as well, Ben. That you get to see where your money goes and that you get something back from that. It's flipping phenomenal what you're doing. It just scares the hell out of me. You're nuts. You're absolutely nuts.
Oh, well, just before I dig into the floor, I just want to ask you, what's next? I suppose you haven't planned it. Why would you?
Do you know, straight after, Alexander, I decided once you're dead, you're dead. It's quite sad, isn't it, really? So I thought that it would be really nice to set something up with my cousin Kev that actually lives on and helps people. So we set up Superhero Foundation, and we launched a couple months ago, and it was just basically an ordinary guy. It's called Superhero Foundation, so it was like, we need a superhero, and he was fundraising for his daughter in Gloucester with cerebral palsy. And she was 3 years old, and they wanted an operation in America so she could walk, and they needed a lot of money, and they was like, we just don't know how to do it. So I said, James, if you just go up and down Robinswood Hill, our local hill, 75 times, that'd be Mount Everest. I reckon that'd get the money in. And he was mortified when I told him. Anyway, we pulled it off, and he went for 60 hours. He cried like a baby, but we did put it off, and by the end of it, Charlotte got her operation. But the best part that I think was Charlotte's going to be walking, but that really is just the bonus part. That on the bigger grand scheme of everything, there's people being inspired. Millions of people were inspired by James, and so that's the motivation, isn't it? It's that ripple effect.
Fantastic. Let's take some questions from the floor. Who's got a question for Jamie?
I'm really honest.
You've answered everything, Jamie. Yes.
As you go around, Jamie,
Yeah.
how come you don't get lost?
Hey?
How come you don't get lost?
Oh, it happens all the time. I don't. Yeah. There's one part of the journey on the run where I woke up and I camped on the side of the road, and then I got up and I just started running. I thought I knew there was a restaurant in 5 miles, and I checked on my Google phone, and I was like, I'm even further away from the restaurant. How is that be? So I put it away and I carried on running. And I thought, something's not right. This restaurant should have been here. I actually just woke up in the morning and I just kind of went back the other way. Yeah. Do you think...
Oh, yes, got a question over here.
Obviously, I'm a massive admirer of what you've done, and I still try to understand myself what's going to happen. When you were in your darkest moment, what did you do to push through that?
Do you know, I just cried. I just cried all day. I just cried. Just let it out. Yeah. And the next day I was kind of, what the hell was all that about? Yeah.
Sorry. Jim.
I'm just thinking, do you think Claire Carter would go on a date with me? I do want to hear you sing again.
Yes, a question on the stairs.
I was just going to ask what would be one bit of advice for people that maybe were thinking about undertaking something like you've done, something epic that you've kind of done like that. What would be kind of a good bit of advice for them to think about?
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
Yeah, just for someone like undertaking something like you've done,
Yep.
what would be like a good bit of advice?
Just don't think about it. Don't think. If you think about it, you'll just scare yourself out of the adventure. Just decide that you're going to do it, and then just go and do it. Don't talk about it. Just go. Yep.
Yes, question over there.
Well, Jamie, give us the exclusive now. I've asked you this question on TV so many times. You've never answered it. What are you going to do next?
Do you know what? I don't know, because every single challenge, it's been like 2 weeks before. I'm going, okay, I'm going to do that. And I'm just not there. I can't leave in 2 weeks. I'm trying to get the foundation up and running, Nibsy. So, and then eventually, I will go on the next adventure. It's definitely happening, I promise. But I just, I don't know. I like the idea of Russia. I don't know.
Yes.
Speaking as a Canadian, I'd like to know what your experiences were between the East to the West in terms of people.
Okay. It's good that there's a Canadian in the house. Oh, nice. Like on the East Coast, there was they're very Irish. They sound literally Irish, fresh off the boat. And when I went through the first province, all the women just wanted to feed me cheesecake. And I got to the end of the province after running 800 miles. I checked the scales and I actually put on weight. The hospitality was that amazing at the start. But do you know what? All the way through, the Canadians are just so nice. Like, like if you bump into a Canadian, they're like, I'm sorry. It's like, it's me that bumped into you. There they are. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, question here.
There's nothing. I'd have a crack on anything. Yeah. Yeah. Shit. That's really embarrassing.
Yes.
Is the bike really just an average bike?
Yeah, really bad bike. Do you know when she said, does anyone have old bikes? I was like, yeah. Then she said, we want to ship it off to Zone. I went, oh, you're not having that bike. Yeah, it's classical, really.
Any more? One last question. Come on, one last question for Jamie.
Sorry?
After that Afghanistan warfare, which is quite amazing, do you ever generally going to get killed by a lorry or run over or whatever?
Yeah, all the time, actually. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I always face the traffic on the run, and I went with the traffic. But that is actually the biggest killer. There's just constant traffic, and especially in the whiteouts in Canada, it's like you can't see a single thing. And there was a snow plow that just came straight for me, constantly like jumping out of the way. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess, right, I guess whatever you achieve in life, really, it's really important that you don't get too big for your boots. This was the moment in the Rocky Mountains. I was a bit murky. I did make it. This is the final summit of the Rocky Mountains. After here, it's just all downhill. So whatever you achieve, just never think you're the daddy, really. I think this is it. It's the summit. Who's the daddy? Who's the daddy? Who is the daddy? I'll tell you who the daddy is. I'm the daddy. I am the daddy. Salt in my mouth. I'm the daddy.